Hi, I'm Dr. Joseph Wu from Stanford University. I'm also the immediate past president at the American Heart Association. And we're here at Chicago for our annual symposium. I'm also here with our two esteemed guests, Andrea and Joselyn. I want them to introduce themselves so that we can kick off this great discussion about the international symposium that we're trying to build. Andrea, you want to go first?
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with you today. I'm Andrea Beaton. I'm a pediatric cardiologist from Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and I also co-direct the Rheumatic Heart Disease Research Collaborative in Uganda.
Joselyn? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Joselyn Rwebembera. I'm an adult cardiologist at the Uganda Heart Institute in Kampala, Uganda. That's the country's tertiary cardiac referral center. I'm also the deputy director of the Rheumatic Heart Disease Research Collaborative in Uganda, and I'm really happy to be here at this year's AHA Congress.
Thank you. Welcome for being here, Joselyn. I understand this is your first time. Yeah. So Andrea, let me start with you. Why do you think it's important to set up these international collaborations, and how has your experience been working at Uganda with Joselyn?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for this question. I'm incredibly excited about AHA's role in building international capacity for research and clinical care, and have been thrilled to be able to be part of a collaboration in Uganda that's really been going on for more than a decade. Joselyn is one of our shining stars that's come up through this process as an early career investigator, now taking on the role as a senior PI. Really showing how we can build capacity in these low and middle income countries. But I think really importantly when we're thinking about this topic is that we think about capacity building as reciprocal capacity building. So it's not just the US investigators bringing what they know to the low and middle income country, Uganda in this example. We're learning a lot from our participation in Uganda as well, and they're building capacity in our early career researchers so that our researchers can take on a more global perspective in their cardiology research, and early career researchers in Uganda can build their skills to address topics that have relevance both in Uganda and around the world.
Mm-hmm. And Joselyn, how did you first meet Andrea, and how did this collaboration start in the beginning?
Yeah, so thank you very much for that question. This is a typical example of, collaboration that is two-way and great mentorship. So I joined the cardiology fellowship at the Uganda Heart Institute in 2014. And at that time, he wasn't head of department, Dr. Emi Okello, who is the current head of department of adult cardiology, was collaborating with Andrea Beaton. So they are the co-founders and co-directors of the Rheumatic Heart Disease Research Collaborative. So in working with and under Emi Okello is how I got to know Andrea. But it's been a great journey of mentorship for both of them. And as Andrea says, it's not just a direct, give and take, but learning from each other. I've learned greatly from the way they work together, from the way they share ideas, the way they share resources, the way they look out for each other, and therefore also looking out for the mentees under them. So today I work with Andrea Beaton more or less more than I meet Emi Okello, but that's all very okay. It has been a journey of learning, a journey of growth, and this is where I am today.
Yeah, and Joselyn, let's get into the specifics of the project that you're working on. Very, very exciting and also a very important global issue. And my understanding is that rheumatic heart disease occurs in about 2% of the pediatric population. And tell us more about rheumatic heart disease in Uganda, and tell us how Andrea is helping and you, and also how the AHA is helping with this project.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. So rheumatic heart disease, much as it may not be, greatly known, it's one of those neglected diseases until recently when many voices came up and sounded the drum. But it continues to be the leading cause of acquired cardiovascular disease morbidity and mortality in the young population in Uganda, but also in many low and middle income countries. Today when we look at our statistics, this is from school screening in Uganda. So these are children who are in school, they are active, they are playing, they are not complaining, but we've screened tons of children over the past decade, and we find that the prevalence of rheumatic heart disease is roughly 2%. There will be some variation in the different regions of the country, but the average is 2%. And these children, if you don't find them early, if you don't treat them, then they're going to present years later with clinical disease. This time they'll be complaining with, heart failure, a young adult has got a stroke, then atrial fibrillation, and we find that the average age of death is 28 years. The other way to put it is that most of the people who, when we wait for clinical presentation, about 60-70% of those patients will present when they already have a complication, and close to 25% of those children and young adults will die within their first year of diagnosis.
Wow.
So it is a big problem. Now, Andrea, having been collaborating with the Ugandan team for over a decade, I think her first project, that was even before I joined my cardiology fellowship, she got into this, screening, finding the children early. Okay, and that went on for nearly a decade, but just like it has been over the entire world, it wasn't even known, if we find these children early, so what can we do about it? I think the first major or landmark step that Andrea and Amy, the co-directors of the organization, took was from 2018, when they designed the GOAL clinical trial. This was the first trial in the whole world to say, is there something that we can do when we find these children early to prevent them from progressing to clinical disease? So the GOAL clinical trial was that provided that novel evidence to say that actually if you put these children on secondary prophylaxis with injectable benzathine penicillin, there's now overwhelming evidence that you can prevent progression to advanced disease. I think, Andrea, that has been the turning point, even for our RCU as an organization, but also, leading us into many other studies after that, and really putting us on the global stage in terms of generating evidence for rheumatic heart disease care and research in sub-Saharan Africa, but in the whole world at large.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the great work you're doing. So, Andrea, I'm going to go back to you. Many of us, cardiologists and also the general audience, we're not so familiar with rheumatic heart disease. So can you explain to the audience, mechanistically, how does it form?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting because the American Heart Association was largely founded around rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease. It was the #1 killer of kids in the United States in the 1930s. There were over 80,000 children expected to die per year. There were whole hospitals dedicated to care and convalescence of rheumatic heart disease in the US. And what we saw is that as we spaced people out, as income levels rose, as primary health care was strengthened, rheumatic fever faded away in the United States and in most high-income countries. But rheumatic heart disease is still very common, as Joselyn said, around the world. About 55 million people living with rheumatic heart disease today, and a huge burden in young children. And rheumatic heart disease starts as a common superficial strep infection, just a strep sore throat that all of our kids get every once in a while in the United States. Everyone knows about it. But when you see strep a lot in your environment, you're more likely to have an immune system overreaction. That overreaction presents with fever and joint pain and rashes, but what it's doing silently is damaging the valves of the heart. And that's the only part of rheumatic fever that doesn't resolve on its own. And when you get rheumatic fever, the next time you see strep, your immune system is more likely to overreact again. And so you get this progressive damage to the cardiac valves that's silent, sometimes up for a decade, until these kids come in, as Joselyn said, in really advanced stage disease. And at that point, the only solution for rheumatic heart disease is surgical or interventional catheterization procedures, depending on the distribution of the valves. And those procedures are expensive, and they're extremely limited in areas that still have rheumatic heart disease.
So thank you so much for such a concise explanation. I think it's also very timely because, as the audience knows, this is our 100th anniversary, our centennial for the AHA. And as Andrea mentioned, the AHA was founded in the beginning to fight rheumatic disease, but now we don't see it that much in the US. It's a testament of how science has advanced. It's also a testament of how the AHA has been able to be at the forefront of many of these new technological as well as medical as well as surgical breakthrough. But it's also a testament of what we still need to do in terms of helping out third world countries, countries in Africa, countries who are has less means compared to we have. So I just want to close by asking Joselyn, also Andrea, maybe Joselyn first, what is it that AHA can help you in the next couple years, in the next 10 years to help advance these global missions of, equity, health equity for all of us, not just in the U.S., but globally. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So in these 100 years, or in my time of being in this collaboration as a cardiologist, the AHA has already done a lot in capacity building, in research, and of course that will translate into clinical care, because all this work that we do will inform, guidelines and inform clinical practice. So I'm looking forward to more of that. I'm looking forward to more, like when there are calls for grants and all, maybe encouraging more from the low and middle income countries. Recently, I've just won the Visiting Professorship Award, and this is a collaboration whereby it's not like the heavy-duty grant writing, but you find that from that 1 or 2 pages that you put together, it actually ends up yields real value in terms of this collaboration. It may be a 1-week visiting professorship, but that collaboration will go a long way. I'm here like after this HL conference is when I'm going to have my 1 week of visiting, but we already started collaborating. We already started writing together. We already started developing ideas, and trust me, this will not end here. So if there are more of these calls that are more biased to where the heaviest need is, I believe that will take us a very long way into generating evidence and putting up these neglected problems into the limelight.
Wow, good. I'm very glad you mentioned about a visiting professorship, because that's something I pushed the AHA to set it up last year. Andrea.
Yeah, I think here what many people watching this may not know is that AHA is really investing in fighting rheumatic heart disease globally. So as international pushes came in 2018, 2019, AHA was right there supporting these efforts globally. They've put out a wonderful, not just saying that because I'm an author, but a wonderful advocacy statement showing how we can help on rheumatic heart disease globally, from members to the organization to policy. They supported a World Health Assembly resolution that reprioritized rheumatic heart disease on the global stage, and they've supported multiple strategically focused research network grants that we've been a part of that have built not only evidence around rheumatic heart disease, one of the things AHA does best, but also clinical capacity building. So we've had 5 international scholars complete 2-year fellowships under these SFRNs, and they're now leading research back in their home countries. So AHA is really doing a lot here. We can always do more, and I'd always love to see us doing more. But they continue to be a major player globally in the fight against rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease, really trying to bring those advances to the world that happened back in the US in the early 1900s.
Well, thank you so much for both of our esteemed guests, Andrea and Joselyn, for being here. This is really a great meeting for us to come together, meeting of the minds at the annual scientific sessions. And I certainly learned quite a bit just with brief discussion with both of the world's experts in rheumatic heart disease. I hope you enjoy these scientific sessions and look forward to seeing all of you soon later.
Thank you.
Thank you.